I'm Natasha Chilingarian.
I'm Michael Ogden. This is Shared Accounts with CU Times. As of this recording, yesterday was apparently Liberation Day. Today, as we watch the markets take a dive, layoffs being announced in Detroit, and coffee prices going up an obscene amount, I am declaring today Libation Day. Yay!
Yeah.
Let's make some cocktails and watch some garbage on Netflix. File your taxes. I don't care, and I don't know. What else are we going to do? Have a drink. I guess we should record a podcast. All right. So, hey, everybody, cheers. Happy Libation Day. And welcome to Shared Accounts with CU Times. Coming up, we are chatting with Katie Gray Ferrell. She's Vice President of Compliance Services for ViClarity, a governance, risk, and compliance service provider for highly regulated industries. You've heard of them, and they take care of credit unions too. They're based out of West Des Moines, Iowa, but she is down in Mississippi. She was wonderful to speak with. Stay tuned for that. First up, we do have to take our break from the week with Natasha. Hey, Ann.
Hey, Em.
How you doing?
Good. I would say Happy Libation Day. I like that a lot better than whatever that other thing is. I don't know. Whatever that is.
It's really wild watching today unfold. You know, we had our newsroom discussion earlier with Peter Strasniak, Jim Duplessis, and we're just like, okay, what's going to happen here?
I have no idea. It's hard to even hold space for it because it's so unbelievable and crazy. But also just, I'm going through some other issues like unrelated to work. And I need like a distraction. So for me, my distraction is watching these bald eagles. And it's just such a, because it has nothing to do. I think I do. Yeah. Are you ready now? Or?
Please, give an update.
Okay.
What do you got?
Yeah, so Jackie and Shadow, the main ones that I watch and that have become very famous. So most of our listeners probably even have heard because they've been in like every news outlet.
Yeah.
Well, they had the three. One of them unfortunately passed away during a really bad snowstorm a few weeks ago. It was kind of a late, it was like 2 feet of snow, like a blizzard. And so that was unfortunate, but I think we're now fully in spring. So I think we can stop worrying about the 2 remaining dying from weather. I'm pretty optimistic about that. But the 2 remaining eaglets are doing great. They're huge.
Wonderful.
It's just so funny when you look at them. And you know what it's like? It's like, as a teenager, you're like uncomfortable in your body, it's like all these changes or you're going through puberty. That's what it looks like they're going through because they look so awkward and like they're just trying to figure out like, how do I work this body? Like I don't moving around. They can kind of walk and they're flopping over and it's so cute.
Great analogy. Yeah.
And they officially have names now. So there was a naming contest. Where fans could submit a donation to the Friends of Big Bear Valley, where that's the organization that runs the CAM. Like you could donate. It was like either 1 name, 3 names, or 10 names. And so I actually submitted 10 names for a $25 donation.
Oh, good for you. Okay.
And so anyway, and then they like drew like 30 names from the ones submitted. And then they took them to the local elementary school students in Big Bear near where the nest is and had them vote. And so they revealed them yesterday. And it was just kind of silly. So, so the older one is Sunny, like a sunny day, Sunny.
Okay.
And then the younger one is named Gizmo. And my first thought was, the gremlin. So it's that gremlin. And then it made me think of that podcast episode we did where it was payment platform or gremlin. And we didn't say,
that game.
Remember that?
Yeah,
it's just funny to me. I was like, all right. It just kind of shows how silly the whole thing is, Sunny
sure.
And
that's what happens when you let children pick names.
Pretty much, yeah. So,
which makes me think, do these kids know Gremlins, the movie?
Maybe. Well, no. I mean, it's an 80s movie, so no. I mean,
I know.
Unless their parents might have it. Who knows? I mean, it's on streaming, so you never know. But yeah, it's cute,
Yeah, that's it. I am now curious if the younger generation has discovered Gremlins, the movie.
I don't know. They should,
look
though.
That up. That's cool.
I enjoy it. It's a good one. It's sort of a Christmas movie. I like to call it a Christmas movie. Yeah.
I agree with that. Hey, quick question. Were any of your names made it to the final at all or anything?
So, yeah, there were Two of them that I submitted were in the final, which I think were probably some of the more popular ones.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, they did list what the 30 final names were.
Okay.
The two that I had put in that did make it were Star and Blaze. And I thought of,
Okay.
well, Star, it was like, well, they were born on camera as a star with like thousands of
Oh,
people watching.
okay.
They
There
were
you
kind
go.
of a Stars Born. I don't know.
Superstar.
Well, it's all these people watching, and
Yeah. No, it's a great point.
that is the thing that the most just psychologically fascinating about this concept is imagine you're born, like you're just, you hatch out of an egg or whatever, and then
Uh-huh.
unbeknownst to you, there's a whole other species that you have no idea exists of like a higher intelligence watching your
Uh-huh.
every move, when you
Yeah.
eat, when you go to the bathroom, and they're
Yeah.
documenting the whole thing. How creepy is that? That is just weird.
I believe you just created the newest reality show that you will probably start watching, you and Zach, next season.
Oh,
That's terrifying.
yep. Anyway,
Yeah, my
so
mom
yeah.
would have been so mad if that would have been the case.
I
What?
mean,
I was on camera?
I guess so, yeah.
That's funny.
Animals don't have the same privacy rights, I guess. So you
No,
can't
I
really no.
guess they don't. No. All right.
Anyway, so Michael, let me ask, what have you been and this could include watching, but what have you been doing to like just distract yourself from kind of all this stress going on in the world?
Honestly, I've been cooking a lot more
Oh yeah?
lately, quite a bit. And I have been watching a lot of movies as well. And I wanted to point out one because I actually mentioned it in our interview. But with today's guest, it made me realize, because she's from Mississippi and I watched this movie, it takes place down south,
Right.
that I hadn't watched in years. And oh my gosh, I cried.
Oh.
The movie, it's still so good. Steel Magnolias. I
Okay.
just hadn't
Yeah.
seen it in forever. That funeral scene at the end is
Oh.
incredible still. And just great fun movie to watch.
Okay.
I
Well,
highly recommend
I'm not
watching
a
it.
fan of movies that make you cry.
But it's so good though. It's a good
Yeah.
thing, I
Okay.
think.
All right. Yeah.
Steel
I'll
Magnolias.
have to
If you
know.
haven't
Steel Magnolias.
visited that thing in a while, watch it.
Great
I
recommendation, yeah.
recommend.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, speaking of, our guests, let's go ahead and move on to the interview. So,
Let's.
yeah, as you mentioned, she's from Mississippi, and so that was fun. We did towards the end there talked a little bit more about, her experience. She's actually always lived in her hometown or in the state of Mississippi, never lived elsewhere.
Mm-hmm.
So she just does travel a lot. So it's kind of fun to talk about what that's been like for her. Also
Yeah,
made me
she did
crave.
say she loves leaving.
There's a yeah, it sounded like
She's
a bit
lived
of
there.
a little bit of a love-hate relationship, maybe. I'm sure. I mean, everyone has
I
like
don't know if it's a.
mixed feelings
I
about
think
your
she loves
hometown.
coming
I don't know.
home.
Well, yeah, she
I think
loves
she
home.
really,
Yeah. I
yeah,
don't
I
want to
think she really
speculate, but
loves it there. But she also, I can get it. I love leaving, but I love coming back.
yeah, well, a
I just thought it was an
balance.
interesting
Yeah.
point. Exactly that.
I can relate to that. Not like one being in one place all the time. No.
Mhm.
I don't know. Maybe some people like that. I have no idea, but I always thought
Probably.
having a balance is more helpful for
Yeah,
your mental health.
you're right.
So, talked about Mississippi. Also, just professionally, she has a really full, extensive background in compliance, both working for and at banks and credit
Hmm.
unions. And I loved how she talked about just her network and how it's important to have friends like in different areas of the industry. Like she said, she has
Hmm.
regulator friends, she has fintech friends, and they all provide advice to one another. So I thought that
Yeah.
was pretty cool.
Hmm.
Yeah, and then of course she talked about just how she's advising credit unions right now during this time of uncertainty with regulations, and she notes
Yeah.
that being flexible and agile is definitely key. So
Hmm.
we have all of that coming up next. Joining us in the virtual studio today is Katie Gray Ferrell, Vice President of Compliance Services for ViClarity. Hey, Katie, welcome to Shared Accounts.
Hi, thanks for having me today.
Hi, Katie.
So happy to have you. So, Katie, I understand you joined ViClarity, which we've actually worked with them for quite a few years here at CU Times, so we're really familiar with the company. But you joined just a few months ago, and it sounds like you're working remotely. So I just had a two-part question to start this off here. First, where are you based out of? And then second, how is it going so far? How's the new role treating you?
I am based out of my hometown in Vicksburg, Mississippi.
Hmm.
I've
Nice.
been working remotely for about 5 years now, and I've had the pleasure of working with and for financial institutions across the country during that time. And this role is going great. I did join ViClarity at the first of the year, so I am approaching my 90-day mark.
Oh, wow.
All right.
Obviously, with a new role, there is a learning curve, but there's such great energy here at ViClarity.
Yeah.
The future is so bright, great ideas, great leadership, and I am very much enjoying my new role here.
Fantastic. And it sounds like you've been remote 5 years, so it sounds like that was a pandemic, beginning of your remote work.
You are correct.
Okay.
I was somewhat forced
Yeah.
to working remotely,
Sure.
and I went into an office for 17 years prior to that. And
Uh-huh.
now I am curious, how did I wake up every morning, get myself ready, get my two
Right.
children ready, and be
Right.
sitting at a desk by 8 a.m.?
How did
It's a challenge
Yep.
now, but yes, it
Yep.
was definitely a COVID initiated transition.
Can I ask you, because, I mean, we've always been remote at CU Times, I mean, forever and ever for the history, but how did you adjust to it when you had to work remote? How was that for you?
Remote doesn't work for all, but for
No.
me personally, I really thrive. I have found that I'm much more efficient working remotely now.
Mhm.
Do I miss the collaboration and the interaction with other human beings? Yes, I do at times. One thing about ViClarity is the ability to travel some and visit home office some. So
Yeah.
there's opportunities there for me to do that, to collaborate in person. But the transition for me personally was not much of one,
Yeah.
to be honest. My husband, he works in an office daily, and for him, he thrives in that environment. So
Mm.
I think that everyone's a little bit different, but
Oh,
I
yeah.
didn't really have any issue with the transition, and I enjoy it
That's
very
good.
much.
Good to hear.
The only reason I bring it up, it wasn't part of the things we were gonna actually ask you about, but I've just been thinking about it because we've hit the 5-year anniversary of everything closing down, and, yeah, just kinda been reflecting on how we all adjusted back then,
Yep.
so I appreciate
Right.
the answer. So I do wanna ask about your new role, not a 90-day mark, that you're coming up on. Part of your role entails the credit union league compliance support. What does that mean?
ViClarity both partners with several credit union leagues across the country, as well as we provide various levels of support to credit unions, whether that be through audit services, consulting, helping them manage special projects if they're launching a new product, for example, and really just being an arm of their compliance management system for any compliance related services.
Mhm.
With all the changes going on in the industry, sometimes that's just being a listening ear and serving as an advisor to help credit unions, especially during these times, navigate changes. And sometimes we're just providing them with a second opinion. The best part about our team is that, including myself, we've all
Mhm.
worked in credit unions and we've all been in the shoes of those who are seeking support from us. So we are very passionate about helping people that have been in the same trenches that we've been
Yeah.
in the past. So I think that's an extremely valuable piece of our team, and it really exudes. Hopefully, we are extremely empathetic, and I hate to use the word sympathetic, but sometimes that's the case.
No. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
But
sure.
we
Yeah.
we are definitely, we've kind of been there, done that, and it's nice to be able to support others who are in similar scenarios that we were in the past.
Yeah, you
Right.
seem to be approaching it from not only empathy, sympathy, but also as a therapist, which is really wonderful.
Through therapy.
I do agree with that.
Yeah.
Great.
So, Katie, you started talking a little bit about, there's a lot of changes going on right now, obviously. This is what we brought you on for mainly. I mean, also to get to know you and all that. But it's been a crazy year. I think we all can agree. And probably on the compliance and regulation front, a lot of crazy things happening, a lot of uncertainty. So, just from your perspective, like at a high level, what are some of the biggest things that you're hearing right now as far as challenges for credit unions this year, in 2025? And then to what extent do you think those are related to all this chaos and uncertainty being created by the current administration and effects of that at the NCUA and the CFPB?
It's a loaded question, but I definitely have had a lot of time to kind of think about these last 3 months. Like you mentioned, you said it's been a long year, and it really feels that way. It's only been 3 months, but it feels like it's been a lot longer, specifically with all of the
Mm.
activity that has been occurring. The biggest challenge right now that I'm seeing for credit unions is that we're kind of in a holding pattern. meaning there has been so much activity in a very short time, and sometimes it's difficult to kind of maintain our patience and kind of reduce our anxiety as it relates to all the information that is being thrown at us daily. It does appear that the executive orders, at least as it relates to our industry, have slowed down a bit, but there is still much uncertainty, specifically as it relates to the CFPB.
Yeah.
We still don't really know how that's going to look literally from a four walls perspective. Not really sure how that's going to look from a human resources perspective going forward. And ultimately, as it relates to compliance, how that's going to impact rules like 1071, the small business lending data rule, privacy, credit reporting. The fate of those rules are still up in the air. Regarding the NCUA, I did have the pleasure of joining one of our leagues at the America's Credit Unions GAC conference in February. And Chairman Hauptman was the presenter, and he was a very dynamic speaker if you haven't had the opportunity to listen to him yet. But he was very clear that, he's focusing on regulations and guidance and decisions that make sense to credit unions based on size and complexity, and not having this blanketed one size fit all approach to examinations. Obviously, I think that's also kind of a what if right now for a lot of credit unions is, how is my examination going to look this year? Will I have an examination this year because of the potential reduction in staff at the NCUA? Will it be remote? Will it be in person? Will the approach be the same as it has been over the last 4 years? So those questions are kind of unknown at this point. Obviously, the NCUA has had some perceived disagreements at the board table. Since Chairman Hauptman is a minority member, they have had a few closed door sessions, and they actually canceled their March 27th board meeting. So there's a lot of speculation around that. So it will be interesting to see how he and the other board members, Atsuka and Harper's conversations continue to flow at the April meeting in a few weeks. I also think it's very important, and I highly encourage credit unions and the industry in general to not just kind of tune in to what the NCUA or the CFPB is sharing, but tune into other agency speeches and priorities as well, such as the OCC, which is currently under the direction of the acting comptroller, Rodney Hood, who also was a former NCAO chairman. This is my opinion, but it does seem like the agencies are leaning toward a more collaborative, the technical term is interagency approach for many initiatives like digital assets and fintech partnerships and crypto. I do think too that the traditional compliance focuses may shift for some of our credit unions. We obviously expect deregulation, but usually when deregulation occurs in one area, it's just shifting to another area. So the risks may be a little bit different. For example, a credit union may view this as an opportunity to explore partnerships with fintechs that they maybe haven't in the past to facilitate some of their strategic goals. So third-party risk heightens, and resources may need to be reallocated to manage those risks. We're actually seeing this as we talk to credit unions daily. Many are finding the next couple of years to be an opportunity to finally do that core conversion that they've been thinking about for 20 years or change their loan origination system altogether or launch a new product. So the shift is what's occurring right now. Innovation is very exciting, and to be quite frank, it's absolutely critical to moving forward. But risk management obviously, accompanies that excitement. So agility is key right now, and being open-minded to learning new things and new risks. Even on our team internally, we are here to support credit unions, and so our support will need to meet the demands based on the risks that they're experiencing. And I have a feeling that innovation risk and potentially third-party risk management will be two of those areas that surface a little bit more in the next short time frame.
I have an observation to make. It was hitting me as you're going through all this, and honestly, love how you just laid all of that out. But for you personally, I was thinking, oh my gosh, as soon as you started at ViClarity, you had a new administration come in, CFPB shut down, a new board chair at NCUA. How's that been? You're stepping into a lot of chaos.
Oh my goodness, when you articulate it that way, wow, I never thought about it, but you're right. Yeah, I mean, it's been an entire shift in a lot of ways, internally based on political climate, and then it has been a little bit of chaos. But I guess one of the positives to being in the industry is for 23 years, like I have, is
Mm-hmm.
I have kind of been through other major changes over time. And I recall very vividly when TRID, when that acronym became an
Right.
acronym in our
Mm-hmm.
industry, and everybody was freaking out about how are we going to implement this and manage this going forward. And we made it through it. I remember the first time I heard the word remote deposit capture, taking a picture of a check and
Mm-hmm.
depositing it into an account. And while I thought it was a brilliant idea, I remember so many around me just being so afraid of what implications that were going to have as it related to fraud
Oh,
and
wow.
Yeah.
allocation of resources. So you kind of think about all the changes that have occurred in the last 23 years and how we've faced them head on. And
Yeah.
sometimes, have had to adopt new technology and implement new services. And we kind of made it through, and now we're just facing different challenges, is really the way that I look at it. Being agile, especially in a compliance role, is definitely a characteristic that one should have if
Mm-hmm.
they're wanting to get into
Absolutely.
this profession.
Yeah. Remote capture. What an adorable problem to have at
No
this
kidding.
point.
I think from our perspective, I think AI has kind of replaced those types of things. Like,
Oh
how in the
yeah. Good
beginning people
point.
were like, even just afraid of like the internet, period, or online banking, like the whole concept
Yeah.
of just online banking. And then
Email. How are we gonna
I
do
know.
email?
But now it's AI. And then I think like in 10, 20 years, there'll be, who knows what will be, but it'll be
Oh,
like the
God.
AI will
Exactly.
have to adjust to that as well. So
I think of the meme when you just mentioned email. I think of the meme where it's got the guy behind a desk and he has no computer, it's just a phone. And it says something like, what did people do before computers even? Did they just
Mhm.
sit at a desk all day with with a phone?
Well, yeah.
But when you really think about it, a lot has changed in a very short time frame.
100%. So let's move on from this because honestly, that question you started with, Natasha, we could talk about this one question
I
for 30
agree. Yeah.
minutes.
So let's, yeah.
I want to move on to hit a few more things with you, Katie, because I want to ask, with your knowledge and your expertise here, what best practices do you recommend for credit unions out there that want to create what we want to call, let's say, a culture of compliance? A place basically where every department understands the importance of compliance and considers it through their day to day work.
The key for me to the culture of compliance absolutely starts with the board of directors. If the board does not understand their responsibilities, which ultimately they are responsible for every component of a compliance management system, or if they don't feel it's important to discuss and allocate resources to, then usually that trickles down into management, which ultimately trickles throughout the rest of the organization. Unfortunately, compliance sometimes is viewed as a call center or a check the box role or department, and this perspective can be very dangerous. Ensuring compliance personnel have a seat at the executive table to me is so important. Nearly every product and service, customer type, strategic session touches compliance at some point. I feel that expertise in compliance has shifted dramatically in the last few years. It doesn't just involve knowing the ABCs, which is what I refer to as the alphabet regs, but being able to actively play a role and strategize with fellow leaders in the board to incorporate their expertise during decision making around innovation and product and services and mergers
Mm.
and acquisitions, even. I also urge credit union leadership to consider compliance and risk management roles during succession planning exercises.
Mhm.
Succession planning is a hot topic right now. And that to me includes the consideration of the BSA officer, even. In recent years, I have seen several examination reports where agencies have cited financial institutions for lack of a plan specifically for the BSA officer, but for compliance in general. If that particular person were to depart, we are seeing a mass exodus,
Yeah.
so to speak, of
Mm.
compliance professionals,
Hmm.
Oh, wow.
usually because they're getting ready to retire. And
Mm.
if there is not a plan in place or there's no importance placed on those roles, it could create a long term ripple effect throughout the organization. So I highly encourage considering those roles during succession planning as well.
Brilliant.
Right. Well, so and Katie, another thing I wanted to get into is because I just feel like historically, just from like the jobs we've been doing here at CU Times, what we hear about compliance is that it's a lot of times it's very overwhelming for credit unions to keep up with, especially if they're smaller credit unions and just don't have the resources to devote to it. So I wanted to ask you, like, what is your advice for those smaller credit unions that might have fewer resources, to stay on top of this? But I guess what I should have maybe asked first is, does ViClarity work with like certain asset range of credit unions? So do you even work with like smaller ones that maybe don't have the resources?
Absolutely. Yes. We work daily with smaller credit unions, and we don't typically work with the mega banks or the mega credit unions or the regional
Hmm.
credit
Okay.
unions, so to speak. Our primary is those institutions that need that listening ear or that little bit extra support or to be an arm of their compliance function. So, one of the best pieces of advice that I can give to a smaller credit union or really any compliance professional who needs some support is phone a friend. Seriously, there are so many resources available. So, just a little bit of a history. I've been in the industry 23 years, but the first half of that I was in lending roles. So, I was in mortgage, commercial, primarily mortgage lending for a long time. And it was very competitive in nature. And then I made the leap over into the compliance space, and the sharing is caring mentality is absolutely true. Throughout my career in compliance, I have connected with so many professionals, either at conferences, on LinkedIn, former colleagues, while consulting. And I can assure you that if I reached out to any of them today with a question, they would help. And so would I. It's almost innate within us that we feel like we're all in this
Right.
together.
Hmm.
And it's the best network in the
Oh,
industry, in my opinion. So never feel afraid to reach out to a peer or engage with professional services like ViClarity. There is someone out there that has had the same question that you have had, and none of us are ever not willing to answer that question if it arises. It's an amazing, amazing perspective that I have about the industry in general from a compliance perspective.
I'm going to zag here from this. This might sound weird. I don't have much of a transition because we haven't talked about this in a long time, either on the podcast or really on in the newsroom. Cannabis banking. You earned a cannabis banking professional designation a couple of years ago,
Yeah.
I think.
Hmm.
Okay. We wanted to ask kind of your current thoughts on the credit unions and cannabis banking issue. It was a huge deal. It has become very, very quiet, even in Colorado. Is this still something that credit unions are pursuing? And if so, what are they facing here in this reality now?
Well, I really think it depends on the state and when cannabis was legalized in that particular state, and if the saturation exists in that state of CRBs or cannabis related businesses in that market
Hmm.
would kind of be the driving factor for a credit union that may be considering entering into that space. Many credit unions, I feel, were in the wait and see mode when this around 8 or 10 years ago, like you mentioned, to kind of see
Yeah.
what regulators were going to do. But there were some credit unions that were very proactive. They knew that if they wanted to enter the space, they would need to do their research, build a strong CRB program, place the right people in roles to service these clients. And
Yeah.
most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, regardless of whether you're thinking of banking CRBs, MSBs, any potentially inherently higher risk business group, communicate often and early with your regulator.
Hmm.
Those that did all of this, I feel, have become pioneers in their particular markets. I obtained the certification actually primarily so that I could confidently audit
mm,
CRB programs.
Okay.
I have audited several institutions that have programs that have been in place for around 3 to 5 years. And it really is a fascinating industry, and it has the potential to be an accelerated income generator for many
mm.
financial institutions. I've
Yeah.
seen really strong CRB programs and really,
Oh,
really weak ones, and
Hmm.
all in between. But I do think that the regulators also have educated themselves more over the years and
Hmm.
feel more comfortable examining credit unions that bank CRBs. At the end of the day, it's all about approaching each member from a risk based perspective and then
Yeah.
allocating the controls appropriately. I always use my MSB example where the local grocery store down the street who decides to cash payroll checks for their shoppers is going to be monitored a little differently than a business entity that owns 150 gas stations across multiple states who cashes payroll
Yeah.
checks for their
Hmm.
shoppers. So same applies for CRBs. The key is, really thinking things through and doing a risk assessment, a very comprehensive risk assessment,
Yeah.
not just as it relates to compliance risk, but will you be able to be financially successful by doing all the things that you need to do in building out your program? Is your ROI going to be positive at that point? But we shall see where this goes. It does seem to, the conversation has seemed to kind of get a little bit quieter around this particular topic.
Yeah.
But I think that it's just because examiners have gotten a lot more comfortable as well.
Well, that's good. And I was going to ask why you did it, but can you quickly explain what it takes to get that certification or designation?
Yeah, so I got it through Bankers College, and
Okay.
essentially it's a self-study program where you listen to and read lots of content and lots of information on how to appropriately establish a cannabis banking program at your financial
Okay.
institution, and then you take an exam to
All right.
prove that you have understood all that you have
Yeah.
learned. And yeah, that's where I received that CBP certification, was through Bankers College.
Great.
It was very helpful, and it definitely helped me to build a perspective because, as you all know, it's not federally
Mhm.
legal. So there's no examination procedures, there's no guidance from regulators on how to audit or how to examine this program. So it's really a matter of kind of pulling together all of your resources and then building your own perspective on how to mitigate the risks that potentially could
Yeah.
arise as a result of banking these types of entities.
I think that's beautifully put, building your
Well, and
perspective.
as you 2 were talking, I had to Google whatever happened to that Safer Banking Act because it was just hanging out there,
Oh,
and I don't think it ever went anywhere, did it? I probably sound like an idiot right now.
Mm-mm.
But
Yeah,
I'm assuming it's not gonna be a priority to get that passed in this administration is my assumption. I don't think it's
agreed.
gonna anything happen, so
Completely agree. It keeps resurfacing under, they'll tweak the name
Oh,
just a little
really?
bit.
Anyway,
But yeah, it's definitely kind of lingering at this point. And I don't foresee any movement in the near future on that one
sure.
either.
Alright, well, let's shift a little bit. One thing I was really curious to ask you about is because it sounds like you've worked in the compliance space for both banks and credit unions. We're curious just how would you say that credit unions and banks approach compliance differently? Like focusing more on credit unions, what would be some of the unique compliance related challenges that credit unions have that banks don't have to deal with overall?
Yeah, so I have worked with and in banks and credit
Mhm.
unions in different markets across the US, but my work has always been with the smaller institutions, or those that are less than 10 billion in assets. And
mhm.
there are some obvious regulatory differences between banks and credit unions, such as CRA, dependent upon which state your credit union is headquartered. Field of membership, obviously, is a big challenge, so to speak, that credit unions encounter that banks do not. And then there are a few others like Regulation O that banks comply with. There's an insider regulation. That's when you lend to your executive team or to your board. But the overall approach to compliance, honestly, for the size of institutions is generally the same. Community banks and credit unions, with the exception of a very few, we all really want to do the same thing, and that's the right thing. There are a lot of non compliance related differences between the two, but the general approach, in my opinion, to compliance is very similar. And a good example of that is financial crimes.
Mhm.
And we as an industry are and must fight that particular effort together, whether it's through FinCEN's 314B sharing or just organic collaboration. It would be a major disservice to separate banks and credit unions when it comes to BSA and countering terrorism and money laundering and all of the horrific things that are going on in our country right now, such as human trafficking and fentanyl trafficking. So, in that space, from a compliance perspective, it is critical for banks and credit unions, for example, to work together
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
do our parts to fight financial crimes. So, generally, overall, I feel that the approach is very similar, but also keeping in mind that, I'm speaking for a certain segment of the industry from an asset size perspective and kind of products and services that are offered perspective. But again, I kind of go back to the sharing is caring mentality. You know, I have banking friends, I have credit union friends, I have fintech friends, I have mortgage company friends, I have regulator friends. And I think the overall consensus is that we are all trying to do the right thing.
Wow.
Do you have any bartender friends or restaurant owner friends?
Well, when I met my husband, he was a bartender.
Okay.
But he's not any longer.
No, we all were bartenders, I think, going through school. I do have a question for you, kind of wrapping up this part of the interview very quickly. If you were in front of, you know, a class of students, let's say maybe senior in high school, freshman in college or something, how would you sell them on taking a compliance career path?
I loved this question. So I'll kind of start here. I think that hiring managers and management within credit unions, for example, who kind of have this like job description box, are going to have bigger challenges than those who are thinking bigger picture and potentially casting a wider net geographically, for example.
100%. Yeah.
You know, obviously, I'm a big fan of remote work because companies like ViClarity give me the opportunity to spread my wings and knowledge, not just across this country from a small town in Mississippi, but even across an ocean. ViClarity, if you don't know, is dually headquartered in Des Moines, Iowa, and in Kerry, Ireland. So how cool is that? You know, and I can do all of that virtually from my home. I don't think that more than likely you'll come across any person, including Katie Ferrell in compliance, who when they were 10 years old said, when I grow up, I want to be in compliance for the financial services industry. I think that the key to finding great talent is flexibility. There are some young professionals who they may not have a strong compliance foundation or a background in credit unions, but they're eager to learn. They're quick to adapt. So I think the approach to hiring has to look different in order to attract the level of professionalism and quality of person that you are needing within your institution. So sometimes hiring for attitude, not skill, may be something to consider, but definitely young professionals, they are wanting to find a role where they can really feel that they are giving value and contributing towards something. And let's face it, we all learn differently. We all work differently. And if you're not flexible to that and you are too rigid in your job description or even the expectations of the work environment are too rigid, it's definitely going to narrow the pool of talent. Because, like I said, this is not something that even is built into a college degree program.
Right.
It's something that we kind of all grow into. So that would be what I would share if I were encouraging a little bit different thinking as to how you reach out and market to professionals.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like there's quite a few opportunities, right? Because you mentioned earlier there's people retiring from these BSA roles. And so do you think there's probably openings because it's not like, oh, it's this dream job title of like, oh, I'm the chief marketing officer or whatever. Or, I mean, you could go up and be the chief risk officer, I guess would be the, ultimate goal. But it's like, it doesn't have that like dream job appeal, I guess, on the outside of the name of it. But then when you talk about what it is, it's actually, no, I would actually do it. Like if I was like 22 now and was looking for something, like it sounds like a good option.
You got to retitle it like compliance firefighter.
Yeah. And sometimes there's the perception that compliance people are only a certain way, meaning they may be introverted or analytical or super detail oriented. And I'm finding that the shift in the expertise, in my opinion, is moving more towards contributing to strategy and assisting with walking down the path of launching a new product and understanding the risks that may be associated with an acquisition. That type of critical thinking and that type of planning for the future is where I see this particular field, especially like you mentioned with AI. There's so many tools now to help make the day-to-day more efficient. So, which is wonderful because it enables those compliance professionals to utilize their skills in a different way, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so definitely don't just assume that a certain persona is going to meet the compliance professional skills needs, so to speak.
Right.
I think with you on board and ViClarity, you all together can really rebrand, for lack of a better word, the word compliance for a career.
Yeah.
That's kind of an interesting thing to think about.
Yes,
Making
I love
compliance a little sexy, huh?
Okay.
Say that? Making it sexy
yes,
again. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, why not? Yeah. All right. Anyway, let's move on to the next part of our interview. Yeah, well, like I said, it sounds appealing. And if I could just say, I love that you talked about the network that you developed through it. Sounded really appealing as well. Just being able to have like a strong supportive network within the industry. So that's also a benefit. But anyway, I digress. Let's move on to the second part. Katie, this is going to be all about you, just a series of fun questions. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, so, well, my first question was going to be, what is your hometown? But you talked about that because you currently are still based in your hometown. What was the name of it again? Was it Vicksburg?
Yes, Vicksburg, Mississippi. V as in Victor.
Okay, excellent. Now, have you ever lived away from Vicksburg, or have you spent basically your whole life there?
When I was in college and then shortly after that, but always in Mississippi near home.
Right.
So I love to travel. I love to travel and not be here when I can.
Sure, yeah.
But it's home. It's where I'm raising my children. And
Mhm.
like I said, I'm just very, very grateful that I have an opportunity to, chat with you all today and share my knowledge and passion virtually across many different avenues. And so, Mississippi's home and I have been here my whole life.
Okay.
Very good. What would you say then, Katie? Wait, where'd you go to college then?
The University of Southern Mississippi, which is in Hattiesburg.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sure. Used to be good friends with a professor down there a long time ago. What would you say? I've been thinking about this particular question because I grew up in Arkansas, went through Mississippi all the time as a kid growing up. But what would you say is the best food item that Mississippi offers that you can't get anywhere else?
So I didn't realize that it's not common everywhere, but apparently grits are not something that everyone has heard of or eaten. It's similar to, I guess, polenta or cream of wheat, but so New Orleans is not far from here. It's about 3 hours. And New Orleans, they have grits and griots, which is basically creamy grits with pork over the top, or shrimp and grits, but grits probably, and best prepared with a lot of cheese and cream. So I think it's most of the dishes that we prepare here that are very well known to here have a lot of butter, bacon grease, cheese, cream,
Whoops.
So
all the good things.
Hey man, fat is flavor.
Sure, yeah.
It's very, very common in all the foods.
Right. Well, and you're correct there because I grew up in Oregon, currently in California, and grits were never. It was just never a menu item on any restaurant, like a breakfast restaurant. Never ever on the menu, except if there was like a specific like Southern restaurant. I guess you could get them, but I never ate them until I also lived in the South for a few years in my 20s. So I lived in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and then I lived in South Carolina, and both places where you could get the grits. But yeah, I imagine that they're very good in Mississippi. Sounds delicious. So
we had a lot of crawfish too.
Oh yeah, yep, that was the thing.
Every weekend in the spring.
Oh yeah,
the spring season.
Yep, did that in Louisiana too. Pour them in the boiling water while they're still alive, basically, and then just eat, super fresh.
Yes.
Yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah, that's it.
Okay, so Katie, going back to while growing up in Vicksburg, what was your like first ever job? Not like professional job, but like a after school job or summer job that you did.
Yeah, I actually started working in a concession stand at the baseball fields when I was 10.
Oh, wow.
I have 3 brothers. Yeah, I have 3 brothers. One's a twin, and we were literally at the baseball fields every night, Monday through Friday. And so I decided I want to make a little bit of money. I don't want to watch them play baseball every night. So that was, I guess you would call my first job. I especially loved preparing the nachos. I know that sounds silly, but if anyone ordered nachos, like I wanted to be the one to prepare the nachos. But that was, I was pretty young.
10.
I've always been one that likes to, and I love food. So I love to cook. I love to, and so it was.
Do you remember how much nachos were back then?
Oh my gosh. I don't, but I know you could get like a hamburger, nachos, and a Coke for like maybe like $4.
Yeah, there you go.
And that was your dinner.
Yeah,
we had the same dinner every night.
Katie, we want dinner.
If you were 10 at the time, I assume you didn't fill out a W-2. It was probably under the table, like cash payments or something at that age. I don't know.
Very much so.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Okay, sticking with your childhood a bit, Katie, what was the first album you ever bought or remember listening to?
Well, the first cassette tape
Okay, fine.
Yes.
I ever purchased with my own money was Pearl Jam 10.
All right.
Yeah.
I was 11 years old when I bought that cassette tape. And it was a monumental moment in my life because I had earned it was my own money and I bought it and I listened to it over and over until it finally broke.
2 follow-up questions. Was this money from the concession stand?
Yes.
Great.
Right.
Second question, what drew you to Pearl Jam 10?
Oh, gosh. It doesn't mean anything to the listeners, but I grew up listening to this local FM station called Z106, and every Sunday they had Tunes Till 2. And so I woke up every Sunday to my dad blaring Tunes Till 2 because it started at like 7 a.m. And it was rock and roll. And Pearl Jam was kind of coming onto the scene, and my dad loves music as well. And so he kind of started listening to them. But I grew up just music was always on. The TV was hardly ever on.
Oh, wow.
Oh my god.
And so, yeah. I still love Pearl Jam, by the way.
God bless your dad. What's your dad's name?
Gary.
Gary, we love you and thank you for being so open with music. It's important, it's a big thing.
Yeah. I agree.
And I love the cassette tape reminiscing because I think we might be from sort of the same generation. I'm elder millennial, so cassettes were kind of the first purchases before CDs. So, okay, so Katie, final question today. This is what we kind of end all of our interviews with. What was the last movie that you watched?
I actually watched that new movie on Netflix last night called The Life List. And I can't even tell you who the actress is, but it's essentially a movie about a young woman whose mother passes away, and she, as part of her last will and testament, she asks her daughter to do all the things that she wrote down when she was 13 that she wanted to do in her life. And she kind of like ignored it and moved away from that way of thinking. And so throughout the movie, she's checking off her life list that she wrote down at 13. It was really cute. It was a really cute movie.
You recommend it?
I do recommend it. I don't recommend all movies from Netflix, but that one it's a very good. And I needed something kind of lighthearted. Everything now seems a little bit dark and kind of scary, and it was cute.
Okay.
Oh, I'll put it on the list.
I actually just pulled it up on my app because like you said, Netflix doesn't always have the best movies. Like, oh, that sounds interesting, and then you're like, what is this? It's very hit and miss. But no, thanks for that. I might put it on the list. So. Okay, well, Katie Ferrell, Vice President of Compliance Services for ViClarity, thank you so much for joining us on the show today. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. It was such a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Katie.
And to all our listeners, thank you for downloading today's show. Please subscribe to Shared Accounts with CU Times and all of the normal podcast places. And please share the episodes with, coworkers, relatives, whoever. Just share it.
Exactly. And feel free to rate us too. 5 stars only, please. As always, thank you so much to our producer, Zach Nyheisel. Thanks, Zach. Join us again next week for a new episode of Shared Accounts with CU Times. Until then, thanks for listening.